Okay, so what are the textbook authors doing here? They're asking you to look at two cathedrals, one named Spire, one named Durham. This is our major focus, but real quickly, let's look at Spire in the Rhine River Valley of Germany. One of the things they've done is to just point out that it is huge, and that is important. Part of the significance of a building can be its scale and how its massiveness just thrills and intimidates people, right? But they also are giving you a little bit of a further development of your architectural knowledge. So I want you to look here. They say the compound piers alternate with smaller piers, supporting the, oops, hey, keep me signed in, supporting the vaults of the aisle bays. Let's get some of this terminology manageable by linking it to what you see and defining some terms. Okay, so you've got compound piers, which means you have these solid rectangular vertical supports, just like at Hagia Sophia, but they're compound. They have multiple layers, including this column, this engaged column here, that's adding a buttress support. Remember, a buttress is an additional support, but also adding decoration. And they talk further about these smaller piers supporting the vaults, the curved ceilings of the aisle bays. Once again, they are talking about something you can't directly see in the photo. What's happening to the side here in the aisle. So they use the term bay, which means a bay is this square unit of space that's defined by the vertical supports, the four vertical supports, the curved ceiling. And so the aisle just has one after another of these. And these can be kind of treated as a distinct unit for analytic purposes. And they're saying that there's a small pier within the bay to support the curved ceiling, a small pier in the aisle, in each bay of the aisle, a set of small piers to support the curved ceiling there. Here's an important sentence. Since groin vaults concentrate the weight and thrust of the vault on the four corners of the bay, they relieve the stress on the side walls of the building. Let's look at the diagram again. So remember, this vault curved form is made out of stone, super heavy. The weight presses down, but it also presses outward because of what's called thrust. The kind of pressure, the push of all that weight tends to go outward like this. And from an engineering standpoint, that means you have to buttress it. You have to reinforce to push against that. And it's going to limit how high you can build. So they're saying that with the groin vault, the intersecting barrel vaults, that helps the thrust to go down through the pier, channeling directly to the floor, which means a little less pressure, a less thrust going out, risking a kind of collapsing of the wall. Well, it turns out that the pointed arch is even better for that engineering solution. The pointed arch actually channels the weight of that heavy stone ceiling more directly down into the ground, and therefore minimizes the sideways, the lateral push pressure of the thrust. Once you have a pointed arch, you've got better stability for your stone walls because of the weight pouring downward, not outward. And that means you can actually build taller, and you actually now can widen the nave. A lot of those Romanesque buildings, if you look at the photographs in the chapter, they tend to be sort of like tunnels, the naves. Now you have an ability to add your height, give a more spacious width, and this is going to be so significant for the design of these stone cathedrals. So that's why Durham Cathedral is so important at this point. And so here's Durham Cathedral, the nave. As the textbook says, this circular window comes later. These cathedrals get modified over the centuries, so don't pay attention to that right now. Look at the ceiling. So the questions here, you want to be able to answer these. What important new architectural techniques were used at Durham Cathedral? Well, look at the arch here. It's pointed. You have round arches still along the arcade, but this is really important, and it's related to, look at the crisscross. This is what's called a ribbed groin vault. So it's a groin vault, you already know that. It's when you have a curved ceiling intersecting at 90 degrees. But now these are pointed arches intersecting at 90 degrees to form a groin. And then they have added an extra rib or ridge of stone, which is functioning as a little extra support, a kind of a miniature buttressing, although it's also very beautifully decorative. And the stonemasons are getting really interested in the rhythm of kind of the repeating, alternating patterns of stonework, which is part of what's going to become Gothic. So the ribbed groin vault is a change in how stonemason construction is done, related to the pointed arch. And what's incredibly significant about it is what it makes possible. What it makes possible is height and light. This nave is now 78 feet high. That's about twice as high as the nave ceiling, the vaulted ceiling at St. James. Because it's 70 feet high, you can do 3 stories now. You can have a very tall arcade story. You can have your gallery level, but now at the very top, you can have a clearest story. And I say it's not visible because the angle of the photograph doesn't show you the clearest story directly, but you can see the light coming in, the natural light bathing the nave in this glow, this beautiful glow. Remember, at St. James, they had to use the lantern to concentrate light because they only had 2 stories and they didn't have a clear story, allowing the light to shine through into the nave. That daring experiment with going up 78 feet to 3 stories is going to require some external buttressing. So this diagram is showing you a kind of view of the building from the side, from the outside, a cutaway view. So if you imagine this curve represents the curved ceiling of the nave, it's got its walls, then outside the building you have this buttressing system that also has a curve. It's called a quadrant arch because it's 1/4 of a circle. And these external buttresses will be important going forward because what's going to happen is that quest for more light and more height is going to lead to our next chapter, what is today called Gothic Art and Architecture. Look at the pointed arches, look at the incredibly tall, glowing nave space, and we'll talk about that next in our next section, why it's really the French style or the royal style.